Hi everyone, Melissa here, and it's time for another message from Melissa. And this month I wanted to explore a little bit further a topic that I started to explore last time, which was best advice you've been given or best advice you've heard. Last month, I talked a lot about this idea of accepting invitations and how that was really helpful to me early in my adulthood. It was something that I needed to hear as a young adult and going into my 20s to really tune me into being open to opportunities and being open to new ideas. And it helped me a lot in my business, but also in my personal life. So I think of that as sort of phase one advice for me. And in recent years, I heard something else that I think has been something I've been thinking about more in my last few years, and I think I'll continue to think about into the future. And that is a piece of advice that wasn't directly given to me, but I actually heard it in an interview with Meryl Streep at a point when I was looking up a bunch of interviews. I happened to find this in one of those interviews. I can't specifically remember which one, but somebody asked her what advice had been most helpful to her. And she said something to the effect of, don't take advice from somebody who doesn't understand your art. Now, I think this is a really interesting thing to unpack, and it's an idea that I've thought about a lot. She's not saying don't take advice. She's not saying don't take constructive criticism. I think there's a time and a place for you to really be open to hearing input and improving yourself. And that's something that we should always be trying to do, that work that we do on ourselves and that getting of feedback. But she's not saying that you take it on indiscriminately. She's saying that you have to take it on if it's right for you. And this idea that, don't take advice from somebody who doesn't understand your art. When I think about what that means, I think that means if somebody kind of understands where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish, then the advice that they're giving you could potentially be getting you on that path. Whereas if they flat out don't understand your mission or your values or what you're trying to do, and they give you advice, it's very likely not pointing you in the direction that you want to go. I think feedback is always a useful thing, but we always have to remember who it's coming from and that they're looking through their own lens to give you the feedback they're giving. So for us, whether it be in your personal life, whether it be in your professional life, if you're a business owner, I think it becomes very important that we have an innate sense of our values and of our mission or whatever long-term plans or dreams we have. Maybe you have to factor in your responsibilities and some just basic logistics of your life. You take all of that into account when you hear somebody else's advice, and sometimes the advice they give seems executable and sometimes it does not. And I think the more we understand about what we are trying to accomplish, the easier it will be to understand immediately whether the advice we're given is going to be helpful or is going to get us off track. So I always thought that that was a really interesting piece of advice that she shared. And it's something that I think about more and more now as I get further into my business. I often find that people do have feedback for me and they have things that they suggest that I change or do differently. And sometimes that makes sense to me and I take it on board. And sometimes I realize you're planning for a different business than the one that I want to run. And I don't need to take that advice on board. But you thank them for giving it to you and then you keep moving on with how you want to run the things that you're running in your life or your business. So I wonder if that's something that resonates for you or if it releases you from other people's expectations at all. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback and feel free to share your thoughts on the best advice that you have received. I'd love to know what that is.